Okay, now last week we had fun doing mixed media painting, and in the beginning of the class, I showed you how to make your own, some of your own collage papers. So I wanted to show you the dry papers that we were working on wet last week. And this is one that had some shimmer in it, some shimmer gold and shimmer green inks. So it has a lot of beautiful shimmery. This is wet strength tissue paper. So you can get it wet. And actually, when you're done with it and it's completely dry, I like to rinse it in the sink because I want to be sure that I get off any excess paint that might not have adhered to the surface. And if you use the salt technique, like I showed you how to do last week, and you get these little dots right here. I don't know if you could see that, but there are some dots on the surface. You see it better from the back there. And sometimes I find I even like to use the back. So I glue the front down instead of gluing the back down. But sometimes you can see the dots better on the back here. And then there's the front. So we were using acrylic paint and splashing it with a lot of water, spraying it on this wet strength tissue paper. And these are the kind of papers that we made. So this one we had put some silver on with that beautiful aqua blue. And that's going to be very exciting. This you can tear up and then use in your collages. And that way, some of the papers that you are using are customized to the color scheme and the style that you like. All right, and last week, I think it was Stay Home to Shop won a large piece of this wet strength tissue paper and some examples of the papers that I had already painted. So that's always fun. Now, what did we use those papers for? We used those papers. I showed you during last week's workshop how to do collage with those handmade papers, as well as, of course, any papers like ephemera is ephemera is ephemera, right? Oy! And of course, I love working with what are they called? Postage stamps. So this is one of the pieces that's now finished and available in the Buy It Now. And it is, what did I call it? I named it Dreams Take Flight because this is SAS. Do y'all remember SAS? It's Scandinavian Airways. And so this is a vintage stamp with SAS Airlines on it and some other papers that I had made and acrylic paints in the background. And then I showed you how to use oil pastels to cut work back in and do some fun detail work on it. That's one of the pieces that were finished, that I finished after the workshop last week, and it is now in the Buy It Now. Then the next one that we were working on kind of two concurrently because I wanted to show you the difference between working on like a regular canvas versus this is black watercolor paper. You see there? Black watercolor, which is very dramatic. I love the drama of the black paper. But this was the regular piece. Let me take it out of here because it's a little shiny. And there you go. So this is, I went in and I did some finishing details, added some more paint to it, more marker work. And this is called Young Ladies. So this is 3 vintage postage stamps that feature young women and some music, which was out of some old music from Salmon's Girl. So Salmon's Girl is in the chat. If you have not already, I suggest that you go follow her. She has some fabulous shows on Whatnot. So if you're over on YouTube, you're going to want to come over to Whatnot and then follow the people that are over here on Whatnot that have amazing auctions and sales. So Salmon's Girls, where I got that from, some of the music and some old book pages and dictionary pages. I love using those in my artwork, as you can see. And then in combination with acrylic paints and various markers. And then here I put the little Doritos in, I call them, the little triangles with the oil marker or the oil pastel crayon. So you will see the beginnings of this piece if you go watch last week's show. Last week's show can be found on Whatnot under past shows, but it only stays out there. I believe it's 90 days. So you can send anyone over to YouTube, to my YouTube channel, and it will live out there in perpetuity, right? And it'll be on YouTube under my live tab. If you go to videos and then live, you'll find it there. But this piece, young ladies, is an 8" by 8", and that is also available now in the Buy It Now. If you are on Whatnot, you just go down to the little house at the bottom of the screen, click in there, and you should be able to find those pieces in there. If you don't find them in there for some reason, I thought I put them in there, but if there's anything that I show you that's not in there, let me know, and I'll be happy to click a picture of it, and we'll get it sold, right? Let's get those sold. Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me put those aside. So today we're going to be talking about brush painting with Asian brushes. So here's an example of an Asian brush. They're usually made with a natural kind of hair, badger hair, wolf's hair, goat hair. This is one with goat hair, this little white one right here. And you can see the paintings behind me here, the Asian writing that's, there we go, the Asian writing here and here. We're done with this type of Asian brush. There's just something about using an Asian brush that gets you those brush strokes that I like, to give you that Asian feel. Now, it is possible to use a watercolor brush. So this is your typical Princeton, my favorite Velvet Touch brushes for watercolors. And you absolutely can use these in order to do the same kind of brush painting that I'm going to be showing you today. But look at the difference between the tops of those. Let me find one that's a little bit smaller so that maybe it has about the same type of hair on it. But do you see the difference there? Where this one is shaved at the top to give you that tip, which is beautiful for watercolor painting. But look at this one. It looks all fuzzy, doesn't it? But when I put it in water, let me see, I have some water right over here. I put it in water, and then I'm going to try to straighten up that end. Ooh, let's do this. And now you've got a pointed tip to it. You see that? So it's a matter of how much hair is there near the top of that in order for you to work with the paint. How much paint is that brush going to hold? And so, hey there, Suji. Welcome in, welcome in. So this is the type of brush that I use for what some people call sumi painting. That's a Japanese style. I learned Chinese brushwork when I lived in Taiwan when I was a kid in high school. That's what we would do, is learn that. Now, there's also a couple of different kinds of your standard watercolor brushes. So this is a Princeton Velvet Touch that has that snap, what I call a snappy tip to it. This one is a Heritage. So the Heritage is more bushy toward the top, right? There's still a point, but you see how it's a little more bushy. So I feel it's very comfortable to also use this Heritage, the one that's a little more bushy at the top. I have found works well for doing Asian style calligraphy too. The trick for getting the Asian style brushwork is in how you hold the brush. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today, is how you hold the brush so that you're going to get the right types of movement of your wrist in order to get that Asian feel to your artwork. Now, I want to show you a book that's one of my favorites. Let me just check over here on YouTube, make sure I don't have any open chats. Nope. Okay. So this, I love books. I'm all about books about all kinds of stuff. History, gemstones, because my father was a jeweler. I have lots of gemstone books. Art books just on all different kinds of techniques. And so this is one of my favorites for Chinese brushwork. And it is a, what's it called? A Walter Foster, I believe is the name of it. Sometimes you run across these. I think this is an older one from the 1980s or something. I'm looking to see if there's a date on it. No, but I know I bought this quite a few years ago. If you find one, pick it up. But you can see it's huge, right? You see how big it is? It's a large format. But what I love about this book, you can see a little bit in the back here, is the way that they show you the direction of the brushwork. Because when you're doing Asian calligraphy of any kind, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, what's important is the direction that you're moving your wrist when you make your strokes. Okay, so here within the book, they're showing you can use watercolors. So this standard tube watercolors, which y'all know I love standard watercolors in a tube. And then this is your watercolors that are in little pans. I also like to use fluid watercolors, so watercolors that come in jars like that. And then this is the traditional Asian, which is um, it's a block. It's a block of solidified paint or ink. And then you rub that in a stone here that has, it's not a rough surface, but it definitely has some texture to the surface. And I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later in order to get your ink that way. You see the brushes here, a brush stand of some sort. In my, let's see, I do have links on my website. So where you saw deetsart.com, if you go there, you can go to the menu item that says supply links. And in there, you're going to find links for brush stands. So that was what this little ceramic piece was right here. That is a brush stand. And so I like to use, usually I have even more brushes than this going. This is a 4-brush stand. I normally have quite a few more brushes going at once between my brushes and my palette knives and my pencils. I'm usually running 2 of these at one time. But when you look on the supply links on my website, you'll see you can click where it says brush holder stands, and that will take you to where you can purchase a brush stand. I've sold out of these. I did have them for sale here on Whatnot, but they are now, I only have 2 left. So those are my 2. They're all sold out. And, but you can still find them by going to my website into the supply links, and you'll find them there. And then in the picture here, there's a little dish that usually you'll either keep water in there if you need to dip your brush into water, or you can actually pour paint into that, because Sumi paint, or this Asian style of painting, often will come liquid like this. So besides those stones that you need to rub the ink block on, they've made it much more convenient for modern day. And that's the same ink, but it's in a nice dark concentration in Japanese or Chinese bottles like this. Okay, so there are many different, here's one, here's one, here's another one. So if you're not sure what you're getting, my suggestion is that you get one that says Sumi ink on it. Then that way you'll be sure. Actually, this company, Yasutomo, I love that company. They have excellent quality items. So you can always look for Yasutomo, and you'll be able to find, and I do have links to some of the ink also on my website, because I don't have the ink to sell here on Whatnot right now. And if I find a good supplier for the inks and the brush rests and stuff, I'll buy more and have them available for y'all here on Whatnot. But this is an example here in the book. You see how they're showing the different ways that you can hold the brush? This is the way I hold it most of the time, but sometimes you need to get more of a broad stroke, so then you're holding the brush this way. So most of the time I'm holding the brush up and down like this, which you're going to see when we get started with the brush work. And then here they're showing you how you put down, drag, and then lift. So in Asian painting, there's a lot of finesse in the way that you start your stroke and the way that you end your stroke. And the reason that the brushes are designed the way they are, that I showed you just a moment ago, and the type of hair that they use in order to be able to get the difference between these thinny thins and then these nice and fat strokes like that. All right, and sometimes you're stroking down and sometimes you're stroking up. And the nice thing about books like this is that they will show you the strokes directions. So let me see if I can, yes, excellent. Here, for instance, you see these strokes right here, but you see the little arrows? The arrows are telling you how to move your brush. So to me, that is the most important thing that you're going to learn about Asian painting, whether I'm using one of these Princeton brushes or I'm using one of the authentic Asian brushes. It's the way that you hold it in your hand and then the direction that you move your strokes. Hey, K&L Resale, welcome in. And Heather Hope, I'm glad you could join us today. I was just talking about Asian brushwork and showing the difference between if you're working with a traditional watercolor brush, which you can use for these techniques, or the traditional Asian or Chinese brushes like this. Actually, here's a bigger one like this. See this big fluffy one? I love how fluffy they are because they hold lots of ink. And especially when you're doing Enso. Enso is a Zen meditation circle that you do with these brushes. So you have to have the brush be able to hold lots of paint in it in order to get from the beginning of your Enso circle all the way around to the end. It's all one stroke, and I'm going to show you how to do that when we get to the painting portion. Actually, these are some of the Enso that I have made. Generally, you're using black, your traditional Enso circle, Zen circle is black ink, one stroke like that. And it's a meditation. So you breathe in and then one breath to do your stroke around like that in order to get the circle. But of course, because I'm a mixed media artist, I can't just do one circle. How can I do just one circle? I have done just one circle, and I do have some of those for sale in the Buy It Now here on Whatnot. I do have single circles, but for instance, this one, I did a one circle here of the Enso. Then I dipped it in water so I could get a more washy, more transparent version here. And then you see the gold that's in there in the center. Then I let those two dry, and then I did a gold one right here. And I happen to write Enso on it so that people that are not familiar with what that is, um, if someone says, "Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. What is it?" And you say, "Well, it's an Enso. It's a Zen meditative circle that you paint using Asian brushes." How do you like that? And I have a bunch of different Enso. Again, that's ENSO. So if you go into Whatnot, into the Buy It Now, and then in the there are different tabs. So there are auction tabs, giveaway tabs, and the buy it tab. When you go in the buy it tab, if you type in the word ENSO, you'll see the various Ensos that I have available for sale on Whatnot. Okay, and here's some of my favorite way to warm up for doing calligraphy is doing bamboo. And so again, isn't this book awesome? Because it shows you exactly like the direction that you're going to be moving your brush and how to do it in order to get the stem of the bamboo and then these bamboo leaves. And I'm going to show you how to do that once I get to that point, because that's one of my favorite things to paint using these inks. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about the Asian culture and how they have gone from having pictograms to now having their modern characters. And so way back, of course, we know in the caves there are drawings or carvings in caves, and they are what? They're pictures. So a picture of a person, a picture of a buffalo, a picture of uh, different, rain, or whatever it happens to be, a picture of the sun. And those are what we call pictographs. So back in the beginning of a, Asian folks who were expressing themselves through writing, they used forms that were very much pictographs. So this is an example on some pretty paper that I like to collage with of some of these types of pictographs. So this is the early writing of some of the Asian cultures. And I love when I find this artist paper to pick these up because I save them and I use them as inspiration, or I just copy the characters um, in my own writing, and then I use them to riff off of to create all different kind of characters of my own design. But these are great as a starting point, and they show you how, just be like a kid. You know how a kid doesn't know necessarily how to form words, but they get something in their hand and then they start making shapes with it. Love that. Love that. I love that, getting back to feeling like you're a child when you're painting is fabulous. And this is one way, is to see these kind of pictographs and then just riff off of those. By riffing off of those, I mean that you're going to um, start by copying the characters, and then once you've copied them, begin to get into a flow of painting and then make your own characters that are similar. Uh, Later, the writing started to get a little bit more defined. So, what I just showed you were more pictographical. For a mountain, they had like a little mountain like that. Um, and then over the centuries, the letters started changing and becoming a little more, or the pictures became a little more ornate. So these are ancient characters over millennia for the word happiness. So every one of these characters is a character for the word happiness, but it would be from different areas within China and Southeast Asia. They would do it just a little bit differently, right? Like today, there's a lot of characters for Japanese and Chinese are the same, but then Japan went off and did their own, and sometimes you'll see the same drawing of a character. It's pronounced differently, and it may even mean something different between the different countries. So, and that's true also, I know of Spanish. My sister-in-law has said, well, if you're over in Spain, things mean one thing, but if you're in Colombia and South America, the same word means something else. So it's that same concept. But these are all characters for the word happiness. And I love to embed happiness into my paintings. So you'll see, hey, Foxhound84, welcome in. So you'll see a lot of the time I will use these characters within my artwork so that there's an underlying message in the artwork to be happy. Look at this artwork, be joyous, be happy. And so I work with characters for happiness. Now, from there, the characters became more condensed because those characters, those calligraphy style characters, were very busy, weren't there? There was a lot there. So when, how in English you have block characters and then you have script characters, and the script characters are what? They're much faster to write and they're very curvilinear. Okay. So these characters have more of a symmetry to them. And then this is their Asian characters that are what they call running. So where we call our script like this, they're called theirs running. And of course, they do their characters down. And where we read from the left to the right, they read from the right to the left, and they read up and to down. Okay. And so this is running script. And just like if you're a child and you're learning to write for the first time, if I show you block characters, you may understand them because that's what your flashcards are. But if I show you script, you're going to have no idea what it says because the script is an adaptation of the block characters. And so the same is true here. The script is very simplified, and so it takes a lot of time to get to know and understand how to read the dang script. And then here's one that's even more flowy. Again, these are papers that I find and then buy that have these characters on them. But do you see how flowy that is? Oh, I just love it. I love it. And you can recognize like there's a character there, but then boom, this all kind of flows together. So when you're using a brush and you're painting, you're just away you go. Now, for the giveaway today, you will be getting a piece of this paper, which shows the modern characters. These are actually a character in Chinese is made up of 4 parts. So upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. And within those quadrants, you might find different building blocks. So this is a sheet with the various building blocks. Now the building blocks may actually be a character or a word in and among themselves, which some of these are. Like this is the character ba for 8, ba. So it's chi ba jiu shi. That's 7, 8, 9, 10. And up here, this one is ren, which means people, ren. But you might find a compound character that incorporates those same shapes into there. Plus, they have various sounds that go with them. And so when someone's learning Chinese, it's really a lot easier if you understand the basic set of portions here and learn how to pronounce them. And that'll help you a lot if you choose to learn Chinese. Now, on the back here, is some information about this type of chart. But whoever wins the giveaway tonight is going to get one of these charts. Let me see where the other goodies are that I have here. You'll also get a piece of each one of these papers that I just showed you. So the running scripts and the pictographs. So I've cut pieces of paper off of those, and you'll get one of each one of those. And then you will get some watercolor paper, because you can do this technique. It doesn't have to be done on rice paper. It can also be done on watercolor paper. It's learning the technique, the way that you move your hand and the type of brush that you use that becomes important. And these are just some of the materials that I have on hand. Now you can also go to the internet, and you can ask the internet, how do you, what are I say, what are the characters for? And then whatever it is that I want characters for. And so, for instance, here, this is Zen Garden here. So this is the symbol for garden, and this is Zen. And so that's the kind of thing that you can look it up. Notice I have one over top of the other because they go this way instead of going this way. It frustrates me when I'm looking at writing nowadays and people have written this way in Chinese, and I'm like, do I read it this direction or this direction? Unless there's a period there, I can't tell which direction, unless I know the characters well enough to know what it's saying. And then I can be like, oh, okay, it reads this way and not that way. And a lot of times when you go and you're doing translations, if you're using Google Translate or something like that, what I find is the old pieces from the 1970s and before of goodies that I have that are in, papers and things that I have that are in Chinese, it can't translate it because it's trying to translate it going the direction that we read, left to right, but it's written right to left. So I literally have to write it down. I have to reproduce the Chinese characters backwards from what's on the piece of paper that I have, and then go to Google Translate and go translate that for me. And then it'll tell me what it says. Frustrating, but it is what it is. Here's another one, which is Zen Do. So this Zen Do. So you'll notice this Zen has little marks at the top of it, and this Zen has little boxes at the top of it. This is the Japanese way of writing Zen, and this is the Chinese way of writing Zen. So what you're going to find is that, and there are some differences between the Japanese and the Chinese in the way that they will write the same character. Oftentimes they're very close, though, like this one was. But this one is about, this is Zen, and this is Zen, having a Zen heart. This is the character for heart or meditation there. So I'll keep these handy because I use them when I'm doing my practice to have characters that I'm more comfortable with and familiar with that I can do. So find your favorite terms that you like or that you might want, and then go ahead and ask for a translation of it on Google. And then you'll have those characters that you can practice after I show you how to do that. Here's another example that I've done of the same character. So this is the modern character for joy right here. Hey there, Bella's Treasures. Welcome in. Welcome in. So this is the modern character for joy in Chinese. But then here are some older characters for joy. Let me see. This one is what they call seal script. So you see how there's a circle in there, where here there's a box. And then, so it's slightly different than over here. Plus this one has little up strokes. This one doesn't. This again is the modern version of joy. This is the script version of joy. Oh boy! So if you were looking at that running script, could you pick out that that was joy right there? And then this is This was the clerical. This is what the modern is the clerical version, and this is the oracle version. So this is way, 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 way long ago. This is ancient. And this was the same character for joy that you can see. It came from this, became this, and then this is the modern version. I just love the etymology to see like the transition of how these characters change over time. I think it's so cool. And often I will use the older characters in my artwork because I like the pictograph forms of the older characters. And that's what I do a lot, is work with that. Now, as far as paper is concerned, of course, there's typical rice paper. So this is a very thin rice paper right here that you can buy super cheap. So I have rice papers under my on my website, deetsart.com. If you go to supply links, you can find rice papers in there. And so this would be where you would get a pad, and it, not a pad, I'm sorry, you would get a package, and they would just be loose in it. Like these are all loose. They're not in a pad. Now, you can also get rice paper that comes in a pad. So this is an example of that. Remember the Yasutomo company that I told you before? There you go, Yasutomo. And they have something called a sketch pad or sketch paper. And I like this. You're going to notice it says here that it is 48 sheets of 6H. Do you see the 6H there? So that's the different thicknesses. Just like with pencils, hey, I have a 2B and a 4B and a 6B. Well, here their papers have different thicknesses. So this sketch pad has the 6H. And what I find, this is the one that I like to use the most, because if I like the artwork that I do on it, I can turn it into finished artwork. And so it's quite a bit thicker than what they call practice paper that I showed you just a minute ago. That's this that came loose. Now, if I'm going to make imagery that I want to have available for collage, I might use this very thin paper, because then it melts more into my collage when I'm incorporating it into another piece of work. So there's room for all the different kind of papers out there, which is why there are so many different kind of papers, right? But definitely, if you want to try this, I would suggest get a pad of this. because you'll have pretty good success with that. And then this is by the Hanamula company, which is, they're 439 years old, this company, this year. And amazing, 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 amazing paper company. They are phenomenal. I love their recycled papers. They make a lot, not recycled, I'm sorry, renewable papers. So they make a lot of papers from like agave plants and bamboo and stuff like that. And they're just phenomenal, phenomenal papers. I suggest you check them out. But this is their Sumi. So that is that Asian style painting paper. This happens to be a big pad of it that they were kind enough to gift me. But you can see here, again, it's that thicker paper like the other sketch pad that I just showed you. All right, this is a 40-pound paper. Beautiful, takes the ink very well. That's what it's designed for. It's designed for a little bit wetter paint, because when you're working with inks, they tend to be a little bit wetter. But if you don't have any of those fancy papers, that is just fine. Also, at a link under watercolor paper on my website, where it says supply links in the menu, there are, I have a link to Jack Richardson watercolor papers. So these happen to be watercolor postcards in the 4x6 size. I love them. Great watercolor paper. Phenomenal, just phenomenal. They come in a 50 pack, and you can see I only have a little bit left. So I need to get some more. That was the 4x6 size. And then this one is the 6x9 size. Those are the two sizes. And 9x12. Those are the sizes that I use the most. But here's what the package looks like for the 6x9, 50 sheets in there. This works great. That works great too. I wouldn't practice or start when I do a session, I start with the thinner papers, and then I work up to the watercolor paper once I'm warmed up with my stroke work. Okay, but you absolutely can do this process on watercolor paper, which a lot of people don't have the specialty rice papers, but if you have watercolor paper, you can do it right on there. The nice thing about these Jack Richardson packs is that they give you a lot of sheets for a really good price. Now, if y'all have watched my other workshops, you know this is my workhorse watercolor paper, and that's the Canson XL watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds, so it's slightly heavier than the Jack Richardson I just showed you. But yeah, this is the one that I do most of my watercolor type work on. Unless I have a commission from somebody, then I'll use the fancy schmancy one. But this is the 9x12 size. That's the one that I use the most. And now in Italy, oh my gosh, this Magnani paper, check it out. Round paper. What? This is watercolor paper in the round. Yes, you can get watercolor paper in a round shape. Love, 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 love that. And so actually I have a piece to show you over here, which is using the same inks I'm going to be showing you shortly, the Asian inks. And this is called Hive. You don't have to do representational work with the inks. You can do abstracted work. And so this is an abstracted piece that I did on that same Magnani round watercolor paper. And then you can see the black and the gold inks playing with one another and all the line work I did in the background. So that is a piece that is more abstracted, but using the same paints. And then last but not least is what I showed you last week, black watercolor paper. I just love the black watercolor paper. And I'm going to show you when we get to painting how you can take a piece of the black watercolor paper here and use white ink on it and do the same, like you can do an Enso in white on the black paper. So we're going to do that as soon as we get to the Ensos. And then this is going to be very helpful for you. It is a piece of felt. So when you're working on the rice papers, it is helpful to put the rice paper on top of a piece of felt. And that way, as you're doing the stroke work, the paper has the ability to be grounded on there, and any ink that goes through is just going onto a black piece of felt. So it's not going to ruin your surface of what you're working on. But definitely, I would suggest putting down some sort of plastic, cover your surface, because yeah, this ink, once it's dry, is permanent. So the Sumi ink is similar to what you might have found before India ink. So sometimes it's called China ink, sometimes it's called India ink, and here it's the Sumi ink. So all of these are permanent inks that you can use with this technique. And then this is an Asian ink that came already in this really nice ceramic uh, dish. So that is gold Sumi ink. That's what I did those gold circles with for the Enso. And it's just to get the paint to reactivate, as opposed to liquid paint that's in something like this, you need to use a dropper and put some water on it and let it sit for a minute before you swish it around with your brush, which is exactly what I'm going to do right now, so it can start to get hydrated. It's helpful. So you want to have a dropper handy for that. All right, and you definitely want to have some water. I usually have 2 containers of water, and then some little cup type things to put your ink in. Those will come in handy. They'll be helpful, unless you have a stone and you're using the stone block, the block ink, because then the block ink will rest in the well of your stone. All right, let me get these waters over here. And are there any questions? I'm getting ready to start here, which means to go over top of the table. Let me show you a couple of other things. This is a cute little water dropper. So I put water in the top here, and then the water will come out here in small amounts, and that's very helpful when you're working with inks. And there was one other thing. These are paperweights. So if you see these little guys right here, they are paperweights. So when you are working on your Asian paper, like for instance, I have the air conditioner going now, and it might blow the Asian paper all over the place because it's very lightweight. Well, then you have weights of some sort to put on your paper to hold it down. All right, so those are the supplies. And we are going to go ahead and go over top of the table. I have something very special for y'all, because when I packed up my parents' estate, I made sure to keep their stones with the inks from the Asian painting stuff that they would do, because I grew up in Taiwan and Korea, so we had a lot of beautiful Asian antiques, and we're going to open up this box together. So we're going to do a little unboxing, which is going to be fun. Hold on a second, let me put some of my paintings aside so I don't ruin a painting that's already done, right? All right. I'm going to go up over top of the table. So when I do that, if you are the type of person that gets like car sick, then you're going to want to close your eyes for just a second. Hold on. Let me get the box here. Wow, it's heavy. You know why it's heavy? Because there are grinding stones in it. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. And that is the unboxing. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. We get to see together what's in here. Of course, I boxed it up a couple of years ago, but now, you don't always remember what you put in there. I just know that there's some really cool Asian painting stuff in here. So let's open this up. Ooh, I could see something already. That is powdered pigment. So instead of the pigment being in a stick, the pigment is in a little packet of powder inside there. Oh, look at this. This is I love how the Asians, usually the Japanese, will put their inks in these beautiful little bowls. So that's a little ceramic bowl, and I can see it has a deep blue paint in it. How cute is that to work in? But this is an inky watercolor. We'll set that aside there. Let's see what else do. Oh, wow. Wow. So y'all know probably the color yellow ochre. This looks like yellow ochre. So this is a little lotus container here. And then look at that big old, see how it gets all dried up when they make it into paint? Isn't that cool? I'm pretty sure that's a yellow ochre. You see how rich that color is right there, right? So here you would grind, put some water in there and grind it around like that. Okay, what else do we have here? Here is a deep red. So this looks like a kind of carmine red or a wine red, but look at that cute little, oh my goodness, I just love these. Very old little container there. Here's another one of the lotus ceramic, and then this is also another red. So this red, I'll probably have to put it into a, I'll have to grind it on one of the stones, which there is a massive stone in here. Oh, before we do the stone, there's another red. So there are different types of red. Now notice this one has a maple leaf on it. So this is likely to be Japanese. There's a little picture right there. Sometimes these little cups can be worth lots of money. So if you find these little tiny cups like this, y'all definitely go for those and check them out. Because like I said, this one has beautiful maple leaf motif, and then a little person here. It looks like maybe they're fishing or something. And you never know, a little cup like that can be worth a lot of money, especially if you know what the purpose of the origin of it was. That was for painting. Okay, here's the stone I told you about. Oh my gosh, this is why this box is so dang heavy. So this is a grinding stone. This was my parents' grinding stone for doing Asian calligraphy or Asian painting. And it has a little well here. If I turn it to the side, you should be able to see that, where it goes straight here and then the well goes down. So you put some water in here and then you grind and you pull it up, and then this is where you're going to pull your paint from right there. Oh, and it's super heavy because it's a big one. That's a nice one. Wow, I'm loving that. Okay, and look, here's a little mini one. This one's not as heavy. It feels like it's plastic, actually. Yeah, this one is plastic. So my favorite is the stone ones, but you know, they're a lot heavier, especially if you're going to travel with it. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. Here's another one. Here's some more of that ochre. Isn't that cool? And then this one just has the little well right here, but look at that. It has a piece of jade embedded in it, and then it has a dragon carved on it. Oh my gosh, how pretty is that? So this one, it looks like you just do this and put some water in there, and you'll get your color from it that way. Ooh, okay, this is another one of those things that you put water in, and then do you see the hole right here? That hole, then it dispenses a little bit of water out of here. This is old, y'all. This is old. It's been repaired. I don't know if you can see it right here. It looks like the handle at some point broke off, but that is very old, and that's a water dripper, which comes in quite handy when you're doing this work. Oh, there's more of that. Another stick of the red. Set that in there. Some more what they call pocket ink. So it's very easy to travel with the powdered ink. Okay, look at this. Yes. You see that? That's our ink block. So that is a black ink block. And this is the character Da, like big, but I'm not sure what those characters are. Okay. So they get impressed with words and designs in them. Some of them have gold leaf on them. And I can see that this has been used on both ends. Okay, so I'll show you how to make ink from that. Let's see. There's another antique. You put the water in there and you put your drops of water out there to get just the right amount of water, right amount of ink flow. Here's another one here. This one's interesting because it has a little hole right here. You see the little hole right there? So you can actually make your ink in here and then pour it into one of those little cups or bowls to use it, and then switch to another color. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to paint with a lot of this yellow, y'all. That yellow ochre, right? That very rich color. Ah, this should be, let me see. Yes. So when you when you look at an Asian painting, often at the bottom, what are the black stones made from? Oh, good question. K&L Resale. Those black sticks are made from soot. So they burn stuff, and the soot that rises up, they collect the soot and they grind the soot. Oh, the grinding stone you're asking. Good question. I did not know what kind of stone that is, actually. That's an interesting question. Um, when you look at an Asian painting, often on one side or the other, you will see some writing, and then you'll see some what are called chops, and they're little signatures, more or less, of the painter. And so this is the red ink that you would put your wood or stone chop into, and then impress it onto the rice paper in order to have your name put on there. So that is that stuff. This is a kind of orangey red. I have some red Japanese stuff. Oh, look, here's one of my parents' brushes right here. This is old. This is an old brush. I like when there's writing on it, so it can kind of give you an idea of maybe where it's from. This looks like goat hair right there. You can see it's all chopped up. And that happens over time. Okay, is this another black one? Let's see. These can be very expensive too, these different inks. Okay, so here's a black ink in there. Looks like this one hasn't been used yet. And then this is an interesting set. I know what this is. It says Boku Taku, and it is for doing stone rubbings. So this says Kuretake Stone Rubbing Kit for wet rubbings. And so it has some black ink. When you go to, oh, look, it's by Yatsutomo, but this is old. This is old. If you go to a temple, oftentimes they'll have stones there that are carved for the purpose of people to bring rice paper, and then they bring a little kit like this. Like, here's a little bit of liquid ink. Here is a tamper that you would tamp down into the ink, and then you would rub it over the rice paper and the stone, and you can pick up images like what you see here. And this should have, oh, it says made in Japan. Yeah, inside there's some like a cake of ink. Oh, that's cool. That is cool, cool for doing stone rubbings at temples. Yeah, that's neat. But this is an old one. Yatsutomo. Yeah, really old. Okay, not ancient, but definitely probably 70s, maybe 80, early 80s. I think it's 70s for that one. See, Yatsutomo has been around for a long time, y'all. Um, okay, so what's inside here? I can see these are antique water drippers like this. Hey, stay home to shop, welcome in. So where you put the water in here and then you just drip it out as you're working. These are antiques right here. That's what all of these are. Okay, so I'm not going to take the time to open those with you right now. Oh, was ist das? Oh, this looks like, I think this is a pipe. Oh, so it's not related to painting, I don't think. Let's see, let's see. But it could be, could be, could be. Ah, okay. This is actually an old scholar's. You see the little string here? So this was for a scholar. You would put your brush in there, and then you would have your ink inside here, like a little cake. You could put a little bit of water on it, pull your brush out, and this was used for people to dignitaries to sign with their Sumi ink official documents. That's what this was for. So that is old. Yeah, that's been around for a long, 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 long time. I remember from living over there what some of these things are. Very cool. Thank you, K&L. Like most people would have no clue when they look at it what the heck that is, but yeah, these are all antique water dispensers. So I won't bore you by opening those right now. Let's go ahead and get down to, let's do some painting. Oh, love it, love it. I wish I had my chop. Somewhere in storage, I have a chop, meaning I have my name carved into a piece of stone that you put into this red ink, and then you stamp it on your painting when you're done with the painting. But I don't know where my chop is right now, so I can't do that. Let's add a little bit of water to this blue one, and then we'll see what happens a little bit later to that. So I've got my dropper, and I'm just going to put some water on the top there and let it soak, and let that soak. What about this red one? No, let's do this red one over here. Same thing. We're going to put a little bit of water in there and let it soak. Oh my God, I love this. This looks like a very old little bowl. Like I said, if you go to like say an estate sale and there's Asian stuff in the house, look for things like this. Now you know what they are, right? This little jar, like this little jar right here, look for them. And if you see stuff like this in it, you'll know that these are old paints, right? Paints, paints, paints. If you see something like this, grab it. Oh yeah, that is old right there. That's okay. I'm gonna set these aside. So I've got a red, I've got a blue, and then I am gonna do some yellow, but I'm gonna do it over here. So I'm gonna show you what you do. These little dispensers like this you put the water in there, has a little hole here. You're gonna pour. Oop, there we go. It's a little over full right now. So you're going to pour some water in there. That's actually a little bit too much. So excuse me just a moment. That's why these little ones, that little metal one was really tiny, because you don't need a lot of water. Actually, it's still too much. You want it to be moist. And then you take this, which you can see is a little bit smooth right here, and you grind it. So before a master painter, Asian painter, Chinese painter, Japanese painter, this is the process. It's all part of the preparation for painting. Is you sit here and you grind your paints. Now, of course, in modern times, we just take the Sumi ink and we pour it into a bowl and we are good to go. But this is what the somebody who wants to mix their own paints to the degree, this is going to get you the darkness or the lightness that you want in your paint. Now let me show you. You see the bright yellow that's coming there? Wow. Okay, so this is obviously not yellow ochre, because otherwise it would have more redness to it. But isn't that crazy? Now you know, if you see something like this, that is ink. All right. So now you're familiar with it. Again, if you're at somebody's home and it's an estate sale and they have Asian goodies at their house, look for them. This is old, old, old ink. Ah, look at that yellow color. Isn't that fun? Now let's take, okay, it doesn't take long for me to get paint all over me, right? Let's take one of the pieces of practice rice paper that I have off to the side here. Hold on just a moment. Okay, and then where did I put, there it is. I'm going to put down the felt, right? I'm going to put down some felt, put down some rice paper, because as you're grinding it, you periodically want to test how much pigment you have in there. So let's do this. And then I'm going to take this small brush that I was messing with earlier. I'm going to get it wet. You want it wet, but not too wet. So that's why I normally have a paper towel in my hand to wick off some of the wetness. And let's see what kind of color we're able to get out of this. Okay, it's a very pale yellow. Pale yellow. There you go. But it is yellow nonetheless. So if you wanted to mix your own green, for instance, what would you do? You'd pick up some of the yellow and pick up some of the blue, and then you could mix your own green with that. That's what I do with these other little side bowls like this. Like, let's put some of this yellow in here. All right. That's why I use lots of brushes, because I'll keep a brush for yellow, I'll keep a brush for blue, and I'll keep a brush for red so that they don't get contaminated. Let me find another one here like that. Get it wet. And let's get some of the blue going here. Let's see if this has started to loosen up with the water on it. There's some color in the top of the brush there. And let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, okay, good. Let me see how I've got a green going. Looks like I probably need a little more yellow. Yes, I'm gonna double dip. Just for the demo. Okay, so that's got like a very dark green, and then you can use this green when you're making, let's say I'm going to do an orchid. So I want to come along here on the paper and do an orchid leaf. Oh yeah, that's a good color for the orchid leaf. Okay, so realize that doing sumi painting or sumie painting is not just about black. Uh, as soon as I'm done with showing you this demonstration of mixing the colors and making the colors from these old ones here, I'm going to show you working with the black. But here, notice I'm not holding this like a brush. Like you might hold a brush for acrylics like this, like you might hold a pencil, or the other way I often hold a brush for acrylics or oils is like this. All right. When you're holding a brush for Chinese brush painting, you're going to hold it up like this. So imagine that it's going up and down. Or as I showed you in the book a little bit earlier, a little bit to the side like that. But you see the grip that I'm using? So between the thumb and the forefinger, and then stabilizing it with these other two fingers here. So my thumb and my middle finger are next to each other. And that's how I'm going to hold it, up and down or slightly at an angle there. So let's do another orchid leaf here. And now I'm pressing down to get the thickness of the leaf, and I'm twisting it to bring it up. Okay, so those are some orchid leaves right there. And then I would go ahead and I would just put in a branch, and then I would build my orchid in these other colors right here, like that beautiful looking red right there. But that is an example of how you use these super old colors, but they're still, hey, it doesn't matter if the color is 200 years old. The binder that they use with it allows you to be able to pick it up even if it's 1,000 years old and reactivate it with water and start painting with it. Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so let me get a bunch of the color, as much of the color out of here as I can before we go to black. All right, so let's grind up some black. Oh, I just love the color that came out. Now, if I wanted to, let's say I need to go make dinner, but then tomorrow I can come back and add water to this. I keep a little spray bottle around in the studio, and I could just spray it with a little bit of water, and it would reactivate that. So it's a reactivatable watercolor, and then go ahead and pick up that color and start using it again. I love that about watercolor. Thank you, watercolor. All right, hold on a second. Let me get another cup because I'm going to be using another cup with the black. All right, I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And now let me show you working with this big old stone over here. Oh, that sucker's heavy, like I said, heavy. Oopsies. My doggy's knocking things over in the other room, it sounds like. Okay, so here's this big stone. And it's already got lots of, I wonder if there's any ink on it right now. Let's take a dry brush here, get it wet. When you first get your brushes, they're actually going to look like this. They're like stiff. And that's just some, what is it, starch. They put starch in them so that when they travel, it doesn't hurt the bristles. But then once you get it to your destination, you just soak it in some water and you'll watch. So what's happening is that little bit of starch is coming off of the tip. And now it's loose. I pull off any loose hairs because in it invariably there are loose hairs. This is actually a combination of goat's hair on the outside, that white, and I'm not sure what the brown is on the inside there. But when you first get it wet, you have to pull out those little bristles. Otherwise, you're going to end up with lots of bristles in your artwork. Okay, let's see if there's any paint on here. You know, who knows how old the paint is, 30 years old if it's there. Let's see. And I'm just going to put it on that same piece of rice paper, and let's see what happens here. Nope, there's no color left. Okay, so whoever used it last cleaned it very well. But now it's damp, and I'm going to pour a little bit of water into this well down here that I described to you. Let me move my yellow one that's so pretty off to the side there. All right, now you can see that pretty clearly. Let's get the one that's already used, this one. Never would have thought goat hair would have been fine enough for a brush. Yes, K&L resale. Yep, it is. Look, this is goat hair. You see there? It's actually not fine at all. What you're going to notice is it's actually quite rough, but natural hair as opposed to synthetic hair, natural hair, if you look at it under a microscope, it has a lot of ridges along it. And depending on the direction of the ridges, when the animal, you'll notice a lot of times water will hit an animal if it's raining out, but then it'll roll off of their hair. So that's because of the direction of those little cuts in the surface. And they hold, if you're purposefully putting them in the water like this, they hold a lot of water. Oh my gosh, so much water. And like you can see this big brush. Actually, I have even bigger brushes like that. And I've used them. You can see there's ink on here left over. I use them for very large paintings when I'm working on the floor. And then I'm using that. Isn't that crazy? And then there's also another kind of brush they call a hockey brush or hake. And so it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 5 brushes in one like that. So if you want to get an area wet or you want to coat a large area, that's also goat hair right there in that hake brush. Oops. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's put this big honking one aside. Okay, so here is our ink block. We're going to take that and dip it down into the water that's down here in the reservoir, the well. Oh, what do I have there? Plastic. And then you start grinding like this. So like I said, this area has a little bit of tooth on it. And so that will allow the ink to come off of there. Okay. And so this is part of the meditation of painting. If you're thinking about the Zen of painting, it's actually grinding your ink. Okay. I don't have a lot on there, but let's see what we have here. And I've got the rice paper. Let's scoochy it aside a little bit. Oh, it's so heavy. And there's the rice paper. Let's take a smaller brush like this. Pick it up. Now, when I'm picking up the paint, in order to get that like really cool point that comes to, remember I said they start out like this, all fuzzy, but once you get them wet, they'll come to a point. And as I'm picking up the ink, I'm turning it with my fingers like this. And then that allows me to pick up ink all the way through all of the bristles and keep my point going at the same time. That's what you want to do. You want to keep that point. So let's see how I'm holding it like this between my thumb and my other fingers. And so this color is sort of grayish. It's not quite where I want it yet. It's not quite black enough. Part of that is because there's water in the brush. You know, you're keeping your brush moist. Let me move the brush back over there. And then, so you can get varying degrees of very darks by just depositing more ink onto the stone, or grays. So what I've got going now is a dark gray. And of course, if I add a little more water to my brush, then I can have that dark gray become more a lighter gray if the more water I add. Okay, so now it's beginning to get a little pasty here on the stone. But that's the part of how you get the ink off of one of these blocks. And these blocks don't just come in black, they also come in all different colors. So again, when you go to my website, how much water do you want on the grinding stone while grinding? Good question, K&L. Notice that there is, of course, like I said, down in here, there's the well, and you see the water that's in the well. So right now, what's up here is beginning to get dry. So in order to continue the grinding, I just dip it in there. Normally, you're grinding here, you just dip down in and bring some up. And that's all you need in order to continue grinding. You just dip in and pull it up. And then that will give me my black. Now again, I could just leave this on here to dry, come tomorrow, spritz it with a little bit of water, and I've got my black ink ready to go. Okay. So we're not going to pull from there. We're going to pull from one of these, which is already fluid, but I did want to show you what it was and how to do it so that you're familiar with what these items are. Because who would have thunk that was ink, right? Who would have thunk? If you're not Asian and you're not familiar with them, you'd have no idea. But now you know. And there, I'm getting ink on me. So let's get this off of there. Yep, and now I can put that away in the box right there. Oh, awesome. And this would be your little travel one. So this is the one that's plastic. Oops. I think that's a little bit, yeah, that's a little bit of red paint right there. But this is plastic, and you just do the same thing. I prefer the stone to the plastic, but hey, if you're going to travel somewhere and you want to take your Inkstone with you and a brush and a little bit of water, you're good to go. A little bit of paper. That's all you need. All right, let me get this paint off of me because I'm famous for getting paint all over me. Now, depending on the paint, it may be indelible or not indelible. So The fact that this will re-wet means that it's more like a watercolor. But if you want permanence, you're going to use what's called India ink. So the Sumi ink on rice paper will be permanent on the rice paper to a degree. I find that when I work with the Sumi ink on the rice paper, if I get the rice paper wet again, sometimes I can get a little bit of bleeding. Okay. But if you want, hey, Susie's Vintage Shop, welcome in, welcome in. If you want a permanent ink that once it's dry, it's absolutely permanent, you're going to go with what's called an India ink or a China ink. Sometimes it'll say India ink or China ink. Let me set this aside. Oh my gosh, I love my stone. I'm so happy that it came from storage. I have all of my parents' estate in storage, and I've been bringing it home, kind of a couple boxes at a time. And I found that box, and I was like, oh, perfect. Of course, because I needed it for this workshop. Yay. All right, let me set these other ones aside here. And I'm going to show you a trick before opening up these inks, like working with the India ink. And I have the white ink for the black paper, right? For the black watercolor paper. Okay, before we do that, I'm going to show you a trick, a magic trick. This is that India ink the same one used for pen calligraphy? Yes. India ink is exactly the same as what you would use with your calligraphy pens. Where are my calligraphy pens? Oh, I don't know. I have so much stuff. I keep having to move things off the table, on the table. There's a calligraphy pen right there, right? A dip pen. It's exactly the same ink. You can also use it with the Chinese brushes. The trick is it is permanent. So as soon as you've finished painting, make sure you get those brushes in water and get them washed out right away, because otherwise it will ruin the natural fibers here. Okay, so this is a brush that only has water on it. Okay, no paint, just water. And there's this super cool. Have y'all ever heard of Buddha boards? I had a Buddha board back in the day. It's somewhere in storage. And a Buddha board is it has a surface to it that you can get wet. And then hey, am I getting paint everywhere? That would be absolutely typical, by the way, if I was. Okay. So a Buddha board is a board that you can put water on. And then when it dries, the water evaporates and it goes back to this gray color. So I have available in the store on Whatnot. So if you are on YouTube, but you would be interested in purchasing some of these practice panels that have this Buddha board type of surface to them, then you're going to need to come over to Whatnot and join with my link. And then that way you will be able to purchase a set of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So they come in sets of 3. And this one happens to have a bunch of Asian writing on it. Now, the Asian characters in general, you want to keep, if you're block printing, so similar to when we block print, you want to keep your characters within in this case, a block. And if you were doing just handwriting, of course, scripting, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. But when you're working with Asian characters, in general, you want to keep them within a block. Now, the character in the middle here stands for Zhong, J-U-N-G, Zhong, and China is Zhongguo, which is it's kind of like the center of the world or center of the universe. And so Zhong means center, which is very appropriate that it's in the center, right, of the page. So with a wet brush, so I'm going to make sure I have plenty of water on my brush here. Just water, no paint. Okay. I'm going to, this is how you can practice your strokes. So here, plus you can get a feel for whether you like this brush or not. Like, I am not happy with that brush at all, the way it's performing. No, no, no. Let's get a different one. I don't like the way that's performing at all. Let me make sure this is just water. Nope, that still has some yellow in it. I don't want any yellow in it. Okay, I'm going to have to get a different one because that has a little bit of residue. Boo, boo, boo. All right, I have a whole bucket here of brushes. Let me see. This one should still be just water. Actually, you'll notice I have two waters here. So you get your paint off here, and then this is the rinse water that's clear. So now I've got nice clear brush here. And most of the time I dry off the ferrule. That's this part right here, just before the brush tip. And that's so that I don't get drips that come down from there. I'm going to hold it like a Chinese brush, okay, between the thumb. You see the thumb and the middle finger, and then stabilize it with the other two, putting my pinky out of the way. And now this is the number 1. So E, sun, si, that's 4. So you're actually following along with the characters, but in just a few minutes, they're going to dry and it's all going to go away. And then you can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. So I use these for my warm-ups before I go to paper. Before I go to ink and paper, I just work with water on these. Now, this one had the characters on it already. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right there. And then I'm not sure what the other characters are. I'd have to look them up. But, you know, when you're a kid, you learn the numbers first, right? Now, this sheet has the strokes, and it has little arrows that show you what direction the stroke goes in. So I had talked about that before. Remember, this is just water. And so here, this stroke starts. Oh, is it my headphones? Oh, hold on. Hold on. I know, right? K&L says, what? That's amazing. I know. These are awesome. Okay. So here, just water again. This is a clean water, not the dirty water. And so here you go down and you hook up just a little bit. So that hook means that you're hooking the brush. You're kind of lifting and hooking at the same time. That's why I said in Chinese, there's a lot of finesse to the end of your stroke. So here we're going to put the brush down, bring it down, lift, and flick. Okay, there's a little arrow here. It says you come down and then you bring it back up on itself like that, and you flick. Here, I'm putting it down, kind of bringing it around, and then flicking up. Okay, so here, that's how you get that type of shape. So you can, now I've done this for a long time, since I was a kid, okay? So my strokes are going to look pretty much what they need to look like. If you're doing it, be gentle on yourself. That's why you have a Buddha board surface here, so that you can practice, practice, practice until you get the strokes looking the way they should look and being comfortable about it. Now this one has a hook at the top and then comes straight down. This one, you push down, a little bit of an angle, come down, and then there's a hook at the end. So you can see there are all these different strokes. This one goes like this, and then the little stroke on the tail there. Okay, so you'll be able to, once you start doing this practice, strokes are angular. Never knew that. Yep. Well, and a lot of it is flicking your fingers. Ah, look, water's going everywhere here. It's the way that you push with this finger, push and then lift, push and then lift. Okay, how you're going to get these little tails and things like here.
And then here, this one has a little bit bigger top to it, and then down. Let me see any other like really cool ones. Okay, this one over here is really cool. You come like this around and then up. But the trick is getting that little tail on it, and the brush makes a difference. It definitely makes a difference. So that's why when I first started with another brush, I was like, oh no, that brush just won't do. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is a cheap brush from Jerry's Artarama. Okay, it says Golden Panda. You buy a cheap brush, you're going to get strokes that aren't right. Okay, I'm just telling you. This is a beautiful set of brushes, and I have some links to Asian brushes. Make sure you get yourself a nice looking set. Don't be cheap on your brushes, okay? Don't go hog wild, but this cheap brush, terrible. This one, you know, medium price, beautiful, all right? And the way that it performs the way it's supposed to. If you have the right art supplies, they will perform the way they're supposed to. Another really cool one over here. It goes like this, down, and then up. There you go. Just like that. So don't be hard on yourself. You know, if your characters don't look right in the beginning, it's just like when you're a kid and you're learning how to write with a pen, or you're learning to work with a paintbrush. Imagine if you had this to start with, how helpful it would be, right? Even for kids, just give them some water and a brush or two. Look, remember I mentioned earlier that you can use regular old watercolor brushes? So here's a watercolor brush. This is just a Princeton Heritage watercolor brush. So yes, I can do these strokes with this watercolor brush. It's a matter of learning how to hold the brush correctly, like that. And then learning the way that you move your wrist around. Okay, here's another one here. Let's do this one. This is using the watercolor brush. So I can make my strokes look right without having to go buy Chinese brushes if I know how to move my hands. And then I could pick up any sort of watercolor brush like that and make it perform the way that I want it to. Here. That would have come out right if I had enough water in there. See, this one's not going to hold as much water. Look at this brush compared to this brush, right? Which one's going to hold more water? That's why I like having the Asian brushes for doing Asian painting. But if all that I had was a watercolor brush, I could still make it work. I just have to dip back into the water or dip back into the paint more often. Okay. Now that is for learning the stroke patterns that go into, those are the building blocks of all the Asian characters. And again, if you're on Whatnot, I have, if you go to Buy It Now and you type in the word supplies, you'll be able to find these what did I even call them? They're rewettable sheets that are in there in a set of 3. So you would get an exact set like this. And I only have a few of them left. So whatever's left in Whatnot is what I have. If you're on YouTube and you'd like to pop over to Whatnot in order to check out the store, then just use the scan the QR code at the top of the screen, or in the comments or the description of the video, there's a link to come over to Whatnot. Now this, I love these because these are little blocks, but there's nothing in them. So what if I want to practice calligraphy, like with a watercolor brush, let's say, and I'm wanting to practice writing calligraphy words like this. Then I can practice my normal English. Yes, water mats. Exactly. Thank you, K&L. So I can practice regular calligraphy right on here. And then it'll just dry up and go away, and then I can do my next set of words. So I like to do, this is the kind, now you see how the, you see how this brush runs out of water? Whereas if I did it with this brush, let's try the same thing. Oh yeah, it's holding a lot more water. A lot more water with this brush right here. All right. But isn't that awesome? Awesome. I love these. This is how I warm up. Anytime I'm going to do a calligraphy session, whether I'm doing calligraphy like painted calligraphy in English or calligraphy for Chinese, I work on these mats first. So that's step one with water. And then I move into my practice sheets. So that was this right here. These were the practice sheets. This is the very thin, thin. So where did I end up putting? There it is. Okay. So then the next thing I do is I put out my black felt. Here, let's do it this way. There we are. And then this is the thin paper. Now, you'll notice with most rice paper, one side is smooth and the other side has some tooth to it. It's up to you which side you want to paint on. Different people just develop techniques that they're more comfortable with on one side or the other. But this is, once I'm moving into practice with ink, then I move into the thin rice paper because I can make these papers. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I use them for collage elements. Like, for instance, where is that? Hold on. I have something here. Well, I'm not sure where I put it now. Okay, well, when it shows up, I will show you, but I have something that is started. Yes, no. Where are they? It is papers to auction after the show. And I put them somewhere safe, right, y'all? But now I can't find them. Okay. Come on. There they are. Pink. So I just want to show you real quick, like, this is some of the cheapo rice paper that I did. And I was just practicing like a running kind of strokes there. And then I collaged it onto this acrylic background. So that's what I love about these kind of thin papers, is that then I use them to incorporate into my artwork. And if you want to know how to do that, that was last week's workshop about mixed media. So let's take this brush that I already have some black on, and I'm going to bring this over here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there we go. My brush rest, very importante. There we go. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pour some of the, this, is this Japanese? Yeah, Japanese ink. So first I shake it. I like these ones that have this little nozzle because then you get out less. You see how it's designed so you can just squeeze out a little bit of paint like that. Oh, it's nice and dark. Oh my gosh, it's so dark. I love that. All right. So let's do this. And okay, I'm spilling paint. So you want your brush to be wet, but not too wet. Remember how I said that after I dip it in water, I'll usually do this and try to get some of that wetness off of there so it's not too wet. This has some of the green on it, but who cares? I'm going into black, so it doesn't matter. So here is the Sumi ink. And what am I doing? I'm soaking the end of the brush with the Sumi ink, and then I'm using it on the side of the little dish here to what? Keep the shape of my brush nice and pointed. So do you see that? The shape of the brush is nice and pointed that way. Okay, let's make some space here. And now I'm going to do the numbers 1, 2, and 3. All right. So I'm holding the brush. I'm going to go straight down 1, a little shorter, and then 2. Now on this bottom one, I'm going across and then bringing it back just a little bit. Bring it back a little. And then 3 is a little shorter one here. Again, you're kind of bringing it back each time. So that's Sun. That's 1, 2, 3 in Chinese. Now let's look at my character for joy here. Woo. So that's why I keep these characters close by as I'm working on these. Now I could just use this and do mark making and then use those marked up sheets for collage. Okay, so I can just come in here and make some other marks on here. You see how it looks like the running script, but it's actually not words. It's just the more you loosen up as an artist, it doesn't have to say anything in particular. You're just learning how to hold the brush and do the strokes. And I had someone standing in front of a piece of my artwork before, and they said, well, I can't tell if it's Japanese or Chinese, and I can't really tell what it says. And I said, you're not supposed to. It's just mark making. Yeah, LOL, babbling. Exactly, K&L. It's like babbling. I call it scripting, and it is creating your own mark making. And then that mark making can be used in your artwork. And it could be that you're just writing words all over it. So I can use the same type of ink and technique, and I can write love, right? And then I can tear that out and use it in my artwork, just like I showed you on that other piece here that I did with the scripting. Because I lived in Asia, I happen to like the look of the downward characters. So here is Joy. Let's do the character Joy. I want to be sure I'm inked up. So I'm dipping it in the ink and then getting my tip to a point, right? And then I've got this little stroke, straight down stroke. So when you're looking at Chinese characters, often you can find where they'll tell you the stroke order, but there is an order to the strokes. So I didn't do this and then this and then this, did I? I mean, that looks good too, but normally you do a stroke, and then this stroke. But hey, no rules when you're an artist, right? It's our job to break the rules. But when you're teaching a child, like when I learned as a kid how to write, you need to teach them what the strokes look like for each one of the letters and then the words. And so that's how I know the order, but I don't have to follow the order because I already know the order, don't I? So this is the top of the character. Now we're going to put a little box here. And then we're going to do another long line. We're going to do a couple of little dashes. And then we're going to do another box here. So that right there is the character for Joy in Chinese. And that's in the modern day. Now, double joy, where you put two joys together. So let's do another one here. And then a box here. Another line, a couple of dashes, another block. That double joy is what you'll see at weddings. So if you go to a Chinese wedding, don't cross your T before you write the T. Right, exactly, K&L. So it's there are orders that you can do it in, but that's when you're learning how to print, essentially. You learn the order. Once you start scripting, then you're able to, like here in the cursive script for Joy, it's the same basic stroke, but you're just doing it really fast. And so you're running everything together when you're doing the scripting. But here, Double Joy is really the character for happiness. So you're wishing the newly married couple happiness into their married life. And you'll often see on clothing, on lanterns, on carved pieces of wood or on brass, you'll see this Double Joy character. Now you know what it is. Now you know to look for that, and you know that that's a symbol of good luck, happiness, in this case, double joy, like joy on top of joy, right? Now that was the current character for Joy. Let's do one of the old characters for Joy, the Oracle. So I'm looking at my paper. I use my reference. In the beginning, I use my reference if I want to focus on particular characters. After that, once I'm loosened up and I've done some characters, then I just start scripting like this and creating pages of script, just because then I know I can tear that up and use it in my artwork. And it's just mark making. So let's do the Oracle. The Oracle, we have a line and then a line like this. And then we have these lines down the side, a line in the middle, like that. And then we have this like interesting. So that's the same character for Joy, but that's an ancient oracle bone version of it. And this is the modern version of it. Isn't that cool? I love it. I love looking at the old characters. Now, here's the character where it's running, what they call running script. So if I get a little bit of ink on here, and I want to do it in a running script, then all I'm doing is the same character, but really fast. And I'm not so much, you can lift your brush, but not. So more like that. Just it's the essence of the shape, but running really fast is how you would do the characters. And that's why it's really difficult for me as not a native Chinese reader. It's difficult for me to make out characters when they're written on the side of a painting. And let's say it's a poem and it's written in script form on the side of a painting in Chinese. And I'm like, I can't read that at all. And I can't read it at all because it's someone's scripted version going really fast and lots of curly cues like this of the character. So once I've done characters and I'm warmed up, then I just come onto the paper like this and I start playing. Now, if I wanted to, I could go back to some of my pictographs here. Right? Isn't some of the greatest artwork like copies? So then I would get a pictograph like this. What I do when I do my most of my Asian artworks is I start with a character for happiness. Remember, every one of those characters are characters for happiness through the ages. So I can just pick one of those characters here, it goes like that. And what I'll do is I'll do the character, and then that will be the essence or the feel for the artwork. So in other words, I've done a character for happiness within the artwork, and it doesn't matter what else I put on the artwork. To me, that's the hidden message. If y'all have ever watched Olga Soby, S-O-B-Y, she's on YouTube, and she does poured acrylic paintings. Absolutely gorgeous. But what she'll do before she starts on the canvas is she writes an intention, a word, tranquility, peace on earth, something like that. And then she paints over top of that. So she's infusing her artwork with her intention. And so a lot of times I will put ancient characters for happiness, or Zen, or like joy, like this. I will embed that somewhere in the painting. And then, even though it might not be recognizable as a character in today's age, to me, it still infuses my artwork with that character. And yeah, so that's what I do. Let's go ahead and fill this up. If there are any questions, I'll take a few. Let me see what else I have to show y'all. Yeah, I'll show you the bamboo once I finish this page. So you see how I get warmed up and then I just, woo, it becomes kind of a, it's like, has anyone ever done automatic writing? Automatic writing is where you have a piece of paper and then you just, whatever thoughts come to mind. Now, what I do to encourage people to do automatic writing is right here. I have my little jar of fortune cookie fortunes. So when I'm teaching a live seminar, if someone says, well, I don't know what to write to start, I say, well, grab a fortune cookie fortune and then write what's on the fortune, flip it over, write what's on the back of the fortune, and then go use that as your prompt to go from there. So that's how if I need, thoughts or ideas for myself, I do that as well, so that it's an automatic way of being able to have right at hand material to start with if you're going to do automatic writing. But this is, well, what you might call it automatic painting, right? So I'm just going right over top of what was already there. And you see how this has beautiful like black and white. So it's very graphic in terms of taking it and putting it into a piece of artwork. Now let's do the character for heart. So I'm holding my brush, Heart is one here. I can feel it starting to get a little bit dry. Let's just dip it in, get just a tiny bit of water on there so the tip is juiced up. And then there's that swoop down and a little lift at the end, and then another one. So that is the Chinese character for heart right there. Nice. So then I've got a bunch of ink on here. Hey, if you wanted to, you could just make with circles. I like using the Chinese brush, holding it up and down. Try it. Try holding your brush. Even if you don't have a Chinese brush, try holding your watercolor brush or your acrylic brush up and down like this, one of the round ones. And then see, you're going to get a different kind of feel to the shapes and the words that you write. So you can hold it still like this between your fingers like that, but at an angle, and then try writing. You're writing with your whole arm, okay? This way, when you're holding it like this and not like a pencil, instead of putting your elbow on the table and just doing this and writing from this part of your arm, you're going to find if you're holding it up like this with these fingers, keep your elbow off of the table. Let's put another piece down here for you so you can see what I'm talking about. Hey, there we go. And then let me put a little bit more water in here. So now it's going to turn. The more water I use, the more gray it's going to turn, right? Okay. So now I'm going to go like this. This way, I'm using a Chinese brush, Asian grip, and my elbow is off the table. Okay, so you're going to find you're using your whole arm that way. And so your strokes are going to look different. It's just a different way of putting your expression down on paper. Now, because I dipped this tip in water to get a little bit wetter, I want to show you the wetter the ink is, the more it's going to feather out there like that. So there's really a finesse to how much water versus how much ink you want to use. Now let's do some bamboo. I promised you I would show you how to do some bamboo. So again, I'm going to put plenty in here in the brush. I'm going to get a little more water. Okay. And what am I doing? Turning the brush and getting that tip straight, right? Like that. Isn't it amazing that a brush that started out like this turns out to look like this? Nice and pointed on the end, right? What? Yes, it's possible. All right. So when you do bamboo, I'm going to start at the bottom of the bamboo, and I'm holding the brush sideways instead of up and down, sideways. So I'm going to put it down, bring it up, stop. Now that's one section of the bamboo. Now I'm going to use the tip, and I'm going to do this, because the bamboo has sections, and at the intersection of the sections is where your little bits come off like this that you're going to put your leaves on. And then the next one, so I'm going to start up just a little bit, and each time I do it, you can get a little bit thinner. Like, in other words, what I'm doing is, you see how the brush is starting to curve? So if you want it to be not as thick, just you're lifting your brush a little bit each time so that it curves and gets thinner. Now here I'm going to go in and put that section right there. So then to do, there's the base. And then you can come in and do these little bits right here. All right, so there you're building your bamboo. And then I put a little bamboo branch over here. And now I'm going to do my bamboo leaves. So really it needs to be a little bit wetter than that. You're constantly, even if with regular watercolor, you're constantly pulling and pushing the amount of water that you have. Now, sometimes what I'll do to be sure that it's not too wet is I'll have another piece of paper off to the side, a blotter, similar to when you're using a dip pen. When you use a dip pen, you put it in the ink, and then you blot it a little bit on the side, and then you go and start writing. So similar to that with these Chinese brushes, often when I dip it in the ink, I'll just come over and make sure that there's not too much there, and then I can get the shape that I want. So I'll put it on another piece of paper, a blotter paper. But here we're going to hold it. We're going to bring it, push down, and then lift up. And there's one of your bamboo leaves. And then we're going to come over here. And then we'll come. So the trick is to get those leaves to have those pointy tips. You want to work with the tip of your brush there, and you're doing a smooth lifting as you do that. And then you just go and build it all over your painting here. You're going to put more leaves. Like right now I'm doing it fast, so it's not coming out right. But when I take my time and you breathe, part of Asian painting is in the breath and the breathing in order to get the brush to go down and come up. You're going to find you're going to regulate your breathing. Now that's doing character work and bamboo. Let's look at the Enso. So the Enso is the Zen circle. Let's do the Zen circle. And now instead of using the cheapo paper, I'm going to grab my sketch paper from Yatsutomo. There you go, Yatsutomo. And like I said, if you go to my website and you go to the menu item that says supply links, if you click where it says Asian papers, you're going to see the sketch pad, the sketch paper from Yatsutomo. They're on the screen, and those are links that go to where you can purchase these items. So this was the little bit thicker paper that I was telling you about. It's a little bit darker. It has a little more body to the paper. But this has, I forget how many, oh, it says 48 sheets, 9 by 12. So there is a lot of paper in here for you to play with. That's a little bit thicker than the other one. Okay, so now we're going to need more Sumi ink in here because you see how it's so thirsty. It's used up quite a bit of it. And we will go ahead and put that in there. I want to be sure I have plenty of ink in there to do the Zen circle called an Enso, E-N-S-O. All right, so we're going to dip our pen in here. They call this a, you'll see if you look online, sometimes these are called calligraphy pens, this type of brush. Okay, you might see that terminology, calligraphy pen. So here we go. Not the kind of calligraphy pen that you and I are used to, which this is what I think of when I think of a calligraphy pen. But this is what the Asians think of as a calligraphy pen. All right, so when we do the circle, we're going to, using the grip, put it straight down, then bring it around, bring it back around, and then it's kind of a flick of the wrist. So you're turning your wrist like this in a circle. And when Buddhist monks do this, they're watching their breath as they're doing it. So you're going to breathe in, put the paint down, one long breath out as you do that. And that will help keep your hands steady for making the circle. So here we're going to, this is not a very big brush, actually. We're not going to get a big Enso out of this. You see, that's why I have bigger, and then even bigger brushes. Actually, this is the one that I really like to use here, this big one. But we'll start with this one. Let's start with this one. And I'm going to put it down. There you go. So that is an Enso, and it's a form of Zen meditation. Now that was good. I had lots of ink on there, but when you use the bigger brush, so let's get the big brush. Let's do the big brush. Oh my gosh! Here's the biggie. Not the really biggie, but it's a nice big brush. So I want to get plenty of moisture in there first of all. And then let's use a paper towel and get a lot of that out because what I want to soak it with the ink, right? There we go. So now it's moist, so it'll take the ink really well. So let's do that. I think I'm going to need more ink, aren't I? I might need more ink. Let's see. Now, see how it's splaying? Because I don't have enough ink. Watch this. I can take a little bit of water and spray it in there. And that'll give me just a little bit more moisture. But you'll know if you have the right amount because when you start doing what I'm doing, which is pushing it against the edge, you'll see if it'll form a point or not. Notice it's not quite a point, so it's not quite moist enough. Okay, let's just add a little more ink here. Yikes. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more ink to be sure that I have enough. And here we go. See, the inside is white. Come on now, I need ink in there. I need ink like in the whole thing. There, now there's ink in the whole thing. So let's put it against the edge. Now look, you see how I got a nice beautiful point on that? That means that I have enough ink in there now to do my Enso. So again, we're gonna do this up and down, straight up and down. I'm gonna put it down, come around. There. I like using big brushes like this because then you get that really broken up tail at the end there. And I like when the tail at the end has that broken look to it. Now for my artwork that I showed you earlier, let me pull those out. When I did, you can see 1, 2, 3. So here I did 3. So normally I would let that dry and then I would come in and do the gold. But right now, let's just do the gold. Let's jump into it. So this was the ceramic Japanese uh, calligraphy ink. And I put water on it and let it sit so it could release the color into my brush. So let's do this. So what's happening is it soaks into the paper and then it leaves gold on top. Now if we're using watercolor paper, it leaves more gold on top. Let me just get this. This was the little bit smaller brush. Okay, now I've got a straight, I have a tip there, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it inside here. There we go. So now that's how you do the double Enso, where I've used the gold on top of the black. Now for the pieces that are available on Whatnot in the Buy It Now, you can see this is kind of a purpley blue color that I was using, and then the gold. This is a purple color that has 2. You see the way that end there is feathered. That's what I like to pull up the brush, and I have a brush like this so that it gives me that feather at the end. Here's the purple, but with the gold in the middle. Some say Enso on them and some don't. This one is Blue Jeans Blue, I call it. The Blue Jeans Blue is one of these kind of, it came pre in a little container like that, a little dish. And this is one that does not say Enso, but it has the blue jeans. I did one outside, one inside, and then the gold in the middle on that one. So that is an Enso. These are available in the Buy It Now on Whatnot. And then here are characters. And this is watercolor paper, so we're going to do that next. Because this was what? On rice paper, right? Actually, before I show you these, let me show you some of the works that I've done on rice paper and then how I mat those. So I'm going to move that aside. But this is beautiful paper because it's that little bit thicker. It's a little tougher. So it'll take more water and more paint than the thin, the super thin like this. Okay, so this is, let's just move those aside for a moment. This is some of my bamboo, and this is how it comes when you buy one of these Asian paintings from me. And I have a bunch of Asian paintings, Asian style. Like if you go into Whatnot to Buy It Now and you type in the word bamboo, you will find a bunch of my bamboo paintings. So this is a bamboo painting on the sketch pad rice paper that I showed you. Now, just the sketch pad paper by itself is not, you could just mount it like that. But what I do is I mount it to, I use a starch paste, a Japanese starch paste called nori paste, and I attach it to another piece of more stable paper. And then I iron it with a hot iron, and then that's what gets put into a mat like this. So this is one that's already in the mat. You have your choice of a black mat or a white mat, and I have all of these pieces that are already done. So this is some bamboo, and this is actually the Chinese character for bamboo. And notice I added more water and created a gray for the background. And then it's put on a stabilized piece of paper and ironed. So this one is available on Whatnot. These are all available on Whatnot. A feather, a lot of pieces. I do lots of feathers. There's a large Enso. There's a large piece of bamboo. What I liked is that my brush was beginning to get dry like this. And so I did the bamboo with the dry brush, and I love the way that it, with where the brush is a little bit dry, you get this streakiness. I love that. And of course, that's the character for bamboo. There's a lone bamboo. This is an Enso. And then after doing the Enso, I put the bamboo inside it. Now, if I had my chop, which is, like I said, somewhere in storage, if I had my chop, I would put my little chop on stone, and I would dip it into that red paste that I showed you earlier, and then I would put my chop right there, and so you would be able to see my name in Chinese as a chop on that piece of artwork. But all of those are already, they were painted on this catch rice paper. They were put onto a backing, and they are ready to go into a black or a white mat. So if you are on Whatnot and you take a look, you can actually see a picture of what they would look like with a black mat or a white mat. Okay, so let's talk about working on watercolor paper instead of working on what's normally called rice paper. Okay, so we don't need this anymore because we are going to work on watercolor paper. All right, now I have to find it. All right, y'all, where did I put my watercolor paper? Here it is. Okay, so we're going to work on the XL, the Canson XL watercolor paper. And this is the size 9 by 12. It's my favorite size to work on because if I take it and I paint on the 9 by 12, it fits perfectly into an 11 by 14 mat, which looks like this. So this is an 11 by 14 mat. That means that will pop into an 11 by 14 frame, and ta-da, it'll work perfectly on a 9 by 12 and give you enough around the edges to tape it on. So that's why I like the 9 by 12. The other thing about the 9 by 12 that's awesome is that you can turn it this way, put it in half, okay, make a line down the middle. So there you go, there's a line down the middle. And then it will fit an 8 by 10 mat. So let me show you that. This is an 8 by 10 mat. That means this will fit into an 8 by 10 standard frame. And 1/2 of this fits this on it. And then I just ran a pencil around it so that you could see. I put it down and ran a pencil around the opening so that you could see that you can fit your characters or your artwork in this area, and it will stay inside the framing of the mat. All right, so let's do a character, or let's do the Zen garden. I love doing Zen garden. So in this case, all right, what is it that is, my brushes are, we're making a shadow there. Okay, so I'm going to work inside this space right here that I have marked off. When I mark it off with pencil, I go lightly with the pencil. I use like a really teeny tiny lead like this of a mechanical pencil, so that when I'm done, I can erase this, and then I'm left with the artwork in the middle, and I don't have my guidelines on there anymore. But the guidelines are perfect for me for what I want to do now. So let's take this brush, which is kind of a medium size. Ooh, I don't know if you saw that, but there is so much black ink in there. It's awesome. Okay. So let's make sure I have plenty of ink in there. And I have a nice snappy tip, what I call a snappy tip. That's a nice tip there. Now this is Zen dough. So after I've warmed up, right? First I've used that like Buddha's, the water matte surface. Then I have moved on to the thin, cheap rice paper to really get warmed up. And then I've moved on to watercolor paper or the thicker sketch pad of rice paper and then watercolor paper. So that's the character for Zen and Do. That means the Zen way or living a Zen path. Okay. But my favorite one is this one, which is Zen Garden. So this is the Chinese way of writing Zen, and this is the Japanese way of writing Zen with the two boxes on the top. So see, they're similar, super close to each other. And then this is Garden down here. Let's take this out so that you can see it without it, right? So after I've warmed up, I'm going to put it back in here so I don't get ink on it. This is available for sale in the Buy It Now of on Whatnot. So let's go ahead and do the two characters. So when I'm working on this character, I start on this side and then I do this side. So that's just kind of like when you're writing the way that you would write. On this one, I make the box first and then I do the little bit on the inside. So I'm going to set it here as my guide, and then we're going to do this. So you see how I'm holding it the Chinese way or the Asian way like that. And I'm going to make this. So there's the first one. Now I want this a little bit thicker and longer. There we go. And then I'm going to do I love doing the little boxes. I love doing the boxes. So then this one, there's a line through it there. There's a line coming down here. And then there's another line here. So that is Zen. This I can actually make a little bit. Yes, sometimes I do go back and fix my characters. It's supposed to be a continuous, like you do the character and you're done and you leave it alone. But hey, you know, sometimes I go back. Okay, and I'm going to get a little more ink in there because I don't want to run out of ink when I do the garden part. Okay, let's do our box. So the box goes this side first. Then we're going to come around here. There's usually a little tail on that side. I'm going to close the box, and then I'm going to do the marks inside the box. And then there's a little box here. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that is Zen Garden. And this is on just Canson watercolor paper. So it does work beautifully on the Canson watercolor paper. And what I'll do is, now I've noticed that if you look at it compared to the lines that I put on here, it's not exactly within the lines, plus it's a little skewed. But you know what? It doesn't matter because I'm going to erase those lines. And when I take this mat and I put the mat over it, I will make sure that I align it the way it needs to be in order for it to fit within the mat. You see that? Pretty easy, huh? Easy peasy. Now, if I wanted to highlight it with the gold, the cool thing with the gold is that on watercolor paper, it doesn't soak in as much as it did on the rice paper. On the rice paper, a lot of it soaks in and then you don't get quite the boldness of the gold. So here I've got the gold. And where can I put the gold? I can just, normally I would let that dry and then come in and do some gold highlights. And I know it's not completely dry, but let's just do this here. And I'm going to do it around here. So now what I'm getting is a double character. And I've got gold in it. Yeah, love that. Love that. So I like to do the gold highlights just for something different, right? I'm putting my artistic spin on it. Now I'm noticing that the gold and the black are running together here, and that's because the black was not dry when I started putting the gold in there, and I'm getting black on the tip here. So of course I would just get that gold, that black out of there, and then load it back up with gold, and then go back in and continue. But right now I'm not going to do it because the rest of this, well, this block is most of the way dry. So that's most of the way dry there. But that's a fun way to highlight if you're going to have another, like a second color or a metallic. There's gold metallic, silver metallic available so that you can highlight your work like that. All right. So I'm going to look for if there are any questions here. Let's see. Okay, I see I have somebody out there on YouTube, but I don't see any questions yet on YouTube. That is a-okay. Let's take a look at that red. Remember earlier I had that little pot of red and I added some water to it? Let me, this little antique, see, it's a little antique black and white. Ooh, let's take a new brush. A new brush. Do you have anything in you? I don't know. Let's see. So first I'm putting it in the dirty water, and then I'm going to put it over here in the rinse water. So that brush is pretty much clean. And then let's pick up some of this red and see what we have. So there. Remember I put water in it earlier, so I'm trying to reconstitute it. Oh, it looks kind of like a cranberry color, but it's not. Right now it's not very strong. It's light, so it's more like what I would draw sakura flowers with. So let's draw a couple of sakura. If you know, sakura is the cherry blossom from Japan. So let's just use this brush and do a cherry blossom or two. Cherry blossoms have a kind of a combination. It almost is like a heart, but it's a little, there are little points on the end there. That's the way I like to paint it anyway. Let's see here. So usually I do 2 strokes for each sakura. There's one flower. Let's do a bud right here. I can see that this old paint is, there are little bits, like little grains in it. I'll show you. Can you see the little grains inside there? But that's exciting. It's something unexpected and old, right? And then we'll do a little bit more here. This one is going to be looking off to the side, kind of. Let's do this. So we've got one looking that way. We've got one looking straight. We have a little bud right there. So that's how I would sort of build out a painting using the brush. And that book that I showed you earlier, oh my gosh, y'all. This book, The Chinese Brush Book by Walter Foster, if you find one, pick it up. I'm telling you, it is so awesome because of the way they show you the various strokes. And they show you what direction with the arrows you go in, when to lift up your brush so you get that spiky end to it. So here, for instance, 1, 2, 3, it shows you exactly what to do. And then you see here how it shows you how to make the flower for the orchid. Gorgeous. And then you see the chop I was telling you about at the bottom there, the red, the little red. There's a kitty cat with a butterfly. Here's another little bit more complicated flower. But an amazing book. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Look at this one where it shows you how to make a hummingbird, right? So you don't have to just use these like these kind of inks like this, you can just buy your tube watercolors and do the same thing. Just use your Asian brushes instead of using like your Princeton brushes that I normally tell you to use. Use the Asian brushes and then follow the strokes and learn how to do the lift, the push and lift, and then you'll be able to create amazing, amazing florals, birds, the possibilities, right? Do you see the Asian flair in there, like with the bugs? Oh my gosh, just so beautiful. I have to work a little more through this this book. This is a rose and a bird right there, right? Crazy, absolutely stunning. Love this book. Love, love, love it. And you can use these exact brushes and the watercolor paints if you prefer, in order to do these paintings. You can even do these paintings monotone, so with blacks and grays as well, using the Sumi ink. That's what I love to do with the bamboo. Is I love the black and gray aspect of it. I think that was the first one that I showed you here, where you add a little more water and then add a little more water and you get your dark, 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 and then you get your light, light, light in the background like that, the gray. All right, so that is it for the lesson. I don't see any questions out there on YouTube or on whatnot, so I'm going to run the giveaway. Oh, no, I'm not. Look, I forgot. I have to show you all how to do white on black. Let's do an Enso on the black. Oh, yeah. Where is my... So I'm just going to put this here, my background, and this is a piece of black watercolor paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these little pots here that I have. Oh, I have to clean it out, it looks like, because I have color in it. Let's take the gold one, and we will just clear out the gold. See why I like watercolor? Because you can just come back later and reactivate it. You don't have to clean up right away if you're a person like me who doesn't like to clean up right away with the watercolor. Not the India ink. It won't work with the India ink, but it'll work with the watercolor. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to be using a permanent ink for the white, which means that right afterwards, boom, this better go into water, because I don't want the acrylic ink to get stuck in the bristles right there. Okay, but I am going to see, this was the watercolor that we did earlier using these kind of inks here, this blue one right here and the yellow, so I can reactivate that tomorrow. But the white that I'm going to use right now is an acrylic. You see where it says acrylic premium paint? So, and you hear there's a little marble inside there. So I like, this is actually a refill for the Molotow markers. So they have acrylic markers. They call it one for all, but it's a beautiful fluid paint that works well with this technique. So let me see if I can get it out of there. Oh, well, I probably left it in there too long, and I would have to clean that out. Okay. Ooh, I don't want the ball to come out with it. So what I have to do is I have to go clean that out, because it's acrylic paint. So since it got dry, it blocked it. Okay, I can see that this is a little bit old, and so it's slightly... It was slightly thick, so I just used my spray bottle I told you I have in the studio. And here we go. We're getting the nice ink on there. Whoa, look at that. Fabulous. So that brush has completely got the white in there. And now let's see how it'll do on the black. Holding it straight up and down. Blob. Bring it around, 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 around. Turning the brush in my hand. and lift. Ooh, okay. So adding that little bit of extra water probably wasn't a good idea because I can see it soaking in. So let's do it a second time. Down, around like this, and back like that. Okay. That's where I do 2 or 3 sometimes of the rounds. Now that is the white. Let's see what happens when we put gold in there. Why not? Why not? We're here. Let's do it. So you do want that white to be nice and thick. There's another white that's quite thick called the Rapidograph white. And it's a waterproof for paper or film. And that one usually works really well too. But you can see it's a small amount. So that's why I usually like using this one because it's big. Big, big, big. Okay, that was a lot there. Let's put it in the rinse water here. And then we're going to go into the gold and we'll see what happens. So normally I would let that dry because it's acrylic. It'll be permanent and then I could put the gold on top. But here we go. I'm using the Asian gold. There we go. And then getting the brush pointed. And then we're going to Enso this again. Okay, if you can see here, the white is not the white is not completely dry yet. So it's soaking into that white. Let me try to get some more gold on here. This is why I say often you'll see my Ensos, if they're multiple colors, I've done several layers. There we go. Now when that dries, you'll be able to see the gold quite a bit on there. And then this size will fit into the mat. Let me see, where did I put the mat? This will fit inside a mat like that. And then that will be a gold and white Enso. So that's the cool thing about trying out the black watercolor paper, is that you can try other colors with it and see. I just love the drama of the black paper. You see how it didn't go through. It soaked it in a lot though. You'll really see the gold come out once it dries. As it dries, the gold clarifies and the little particles sit on top, and it's beautiful.